Hey everyone, it's Miss Caroline here. In this video, I'm going to go over lesson 1 of Unit 2 for Social Studies. And this lesson is on the Fertile Crescent. And just a reminder, it's due this Friday, the 15th. So before we get into it, let's review our questions and then go over the vocabulary. Okay, so our first one is a cause and effect. So causes here, we have rainfall was low in Mesopotamia, and then the effect, farmers built irrigation systems. And then we have 2 more causes that we have to fill in the effects for. Populations in southern Mesopotamia grew. So because this happened, what happened as a result? And Mesopotamia lacked many natural resources. So because they lacked many natural resources, what happened? What was the effect of that as a result? So for the first one, I always like to save this one for the end until we've read the whole thing and we've figured out everything that has happened during this time period. Number 2 is, where did the first civilizations arrive? Okay, so keywords here, we're looking for a place. It says where, and the first civilizations. Okay. Number 3, how did Mesopotamian farmers use the Tigris and Euphrates rivers to solve the problem of low rainfall? So how did farmers use these rivers to solve the problems? They had a problem of low rainfall. Okay. Number 4, what was one of the major steps toward the rise of civilization in southern Mesopotamia? So one major step that led to the rise of civilization in southern Mesopotamia. Okay. And number 5 is our critical thinking question, and it's focused on making inferences. Why do you think settlers from other parts of the Fertile Crescent came to southern Mesopotamia? So why do we think they came to southern Mesopotamia? And remember, for inferences, we've done a lot of these in ELA. When you're making an inference, you're making an educated, a good guess based on the facts that are in the article or in the text. So based on what we know, what do we think could happen? Okay. Let's go over our vocabulary. A civilization is a group of people who live in a complex, organized society within a culture. So this is when people weren't nomads. They organized together. They were living in one area. They had an organized society, so people had jobs. They were all working together. Fertile means rich. So when we're going to be learning about fertile, it's referring to soil. So it means it's rich, it's good farming soil in the context of what we're going to be talking about. It's good for farming. A plain is a flat area of land, and a plateau is an area of high flat land. So when I think about a plateau, I think about it's like a hill that then got smushed at the top. So it's like, here's the hill starting to form, and then somebody came and smushed it down. Now it's flat on top. This would be a plateau. All right, and then a plain is just flat. Irrigation is a system for watering crops. We'll learn more about that in here, but basically if the river was over here and their houses and everything that they needed water was way over here, instead of carrying buckets of water back and forth, they had irrigation systems, so like a system of little trenches that would go and form little pools right by where they needed it. So they'd have it go all the way through their community. Okay. A city-state is a city with its own form of government, villages, and traditions. So it's called a city-state because even though it's just one city, it acts as though it's its own state because it has its own government, villages, and traditions. Kind of has its separate little culture within the state. A region is an area of land with common physical features. So if there was an area where it was all plains, you'd call that would be a region of plains. An artisan is a craftsperson. So basically, you can think of just like an artist. Okay, so let's get started. And remember, the first one that we're looking for is, where did the first civilizations arise? So not when, but where. Okay. So, where civilization began. So we already know it's going to be in this paragraph. The earliest civilizations developed in Southwestern Asia in about 3500 BC. A civilization is a group of people who live in a complex, organized society within a culture. Civilizations developed in a part of Southwest Asia that stretched from the eastern shores of the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf. We call this area the Fertile Crescent because its land was very fertile or rich and shaped like a crescent or a curve. A flat area of land or plain stretched between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This plain became known as Mesopotamia, or the land between the rivers. One of the first civilizations appeared in Mesopotamia. So for a second, I just want you to look over what we've just read and see where you think the answer is. There's several different spots in there with text evidence regarding where the first civilizations began. Okay, so if we look back through this, you see that the earliest civilizations developed in Southwestern Asia. Okay, so Southwestern Asia. And then down here it says they get to be a little bit more specific. So instead of just saying Southwestern Asia, now they say it's a part of Southwestern Asia that stretched from the eastern shores of the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf. And that area is the Fertile Crescent. So the Fertile Crescent is in Southwestern Asia, and that's where the first civilizations began. And within the Fertile Crescent, a lot of civilizations, one of the first civilizations appeared in Mesopotamia. And Mesopotamia is in part of the Fertile Crescent that had especially fertile land because it was right in between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. So I just want to show you this picture really quick. All right, so if we look at this map, and this was on our homework assignment from last week as well, here's the Euphrates River, and here's the Tigris River. Now, this whole green part is the Fertile Crescent, but Mesopotamia is this part right in here between the rivers. So This is like in modern day, like Syria and Egypt area. This is where the Fertile Crescent was. Oops. So this whole Fertile Crescent had fertile or rich, good farmland, but especially in here in Mesopotamia, because it had the Euphrates River and the Tigris River. So a lot of the nutrients from the rivers seeped out into the soil here. So that's why this was such a great spot for civilizations to start developing. They had access to water very close by, and the land was nice and rich for farming.